Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're looking at blockchain.
Okay.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at how it intersects with consumer behavior and, how willing are people to pay for information just because it's on a blockchain. And to help us with this, we're going to be looking at an essay by Jörg-Owe
So good.
called Consumer Willingness to Pay for Information Stored on Blockchain.
With a question mark.
With a question mark.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Schneppet himself isn't making any assumptions.
Right?
But before we get into the, nitty gritty,
Yeah.
let's make sure we're all on the same page when it comes to blockchain.
Yeah.
And the simplest terms, I think of it as like a digital ledger that's super secure and transparent, a way to track information that can't be tampered with.
Yeah. And that immutability is key because Schneppet argues that it directly addresses a growing consumer need.
Yeah.
Trust. People are increasingly skeptical of traditional sources of information.
Right.
Especially when it comes to things like, a product sustainability claims.
So blockchain is like a digital seal of authenticity.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Schneppet dives deeper into this, suggesting it's not just about avoiding being misled. He suggests there's a psychological component at play.
Okay.
Consumers may be willing to pay more for blockchain-verified information because it validates their green purchases, making them feel good about their choices.
So I'm not just buying a product, I'm buying peace of mind.
Precisely. And this ties into Schneppet's point about the consumption value theory.
Okay.
Consumers don't just consider function, they factor in, emotional, social, even ethical dimensions.
Okay.
So the feeling of trust, the knowledge that you're making a responsible choice, that becomes part of the product's value.
Okay, so we've got this foundation. People are craving trust. And blockchain can potentially provide it, especially when it comes to something like sustainability.
Right.
Where the stakes feel high, but Schneppet doesn't just theorize, he actually looks at the market, right?
He does, and his findings are pretty interesting. He projects that the blockchain market could reach a staggering $825.93 billion by 2032.
Whoa, that's massive. Where is all that growth coming from? Is it all businesses or are everyday consumers actually starting to drive that demand?
Schneppet identifies several key segments, including the private sector, which is booming due to the need for data security.
Okay.
But he also points to a rising consumer demand for transparency.
Oh, yeah.
People are becoming more aware of the power of information and how it can influence their choices.
So it's not just about companies protecting their data, it's about empowering consumers to make informed decisions.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does that translate into actual dollars and cents? How are companies finding ways to get consumers to pay for this blockchain-secured information?
Well, Schneppet outlines a few different pricing models that are being explored, things like dynamic pricing, where the cost fluctuates based on demand, or micropayments, where you pay a small fee to access specific pieces of information.
So instead of buying a whole report on a company's supply chain, you could pay a few cents to verify a specific claim about, let's say, the origin of a product's materials.
Exactly. It's about giving consumers more control and flexibility over the information they access and what they're willing to pay for it. Schneppet also discusses tiered subscription models, similar to what we see with streaming services. You could imagine a basic tier with essential sustainability info and a premium tier offering more in-depth analysis and reporting.
Okay, so there's definitely some intriguing ideas here about how companies can monetize blockchain-secured information. But Schneppet isn't naive about the challenges, is he?
He's not.
He acknowledges there are some hurdles to overcome.
He does, and he lists several key challenges, starting with the cost of implementing these systems.
Yeah.
Especially for smaller companies, then there are the energy consumption concerns associated with blockchain technology.
Right.
Consumers are becoming more environmentally conscious, and they don't want their quest for sustainable products to come at the cost of the planet.
It's like, what's the point of knowing your coffee is fair trade if the technology used to verify that information is contributing to environmental problems?
Exactly. And Schneppet also highlights regulatory uncertainty as a major obstacle.
Okay.
There's still a lot of ambiguity surrounding how blockchain will be regulated, making some companies hesitant to fully commit. And then, of course, there's the issue of complexity.
Right. For a lot of people, blockchain just seems like this super complicated techie thing they don't fully understand.
Yeah.
And Schneppet suggests that this perception of complexity could be a big barrier to wider adoption, right?
Absolutely. He argues that people often gravitate towards what's familiar, even if it's not the most efficient or transparent system.
Okay.
So even if blockchain offers a better way to verify information, the perceived difficulty of using it might deter some consumers.
So we've got this interesting tension between the potential benefits of blockchain and the very real challenges it faces.
Yeah.
So where do we go from here? What does the future hold for this technology, especially when it comes to consumers and their willingness to pay for information?
That's what we'll be digging into in the next part of our deep dive. Schneppat doesn't just leave us with a list of challenges. He actually offers some insights into emerging trends and what they might mean for the future of blockchain.
Sounds like we've got a lot more to unpack. We'll be back after a quick...
Yeah.
Just kidding. We're diving right back in, so stay with us. Okay, so we've talked about the potential of blockchain to meet this growing demand for trustworthy information, but also about the very real hurdles it faces. So where do we go from here? Does Schneppat leave us hanging, or does he offer any, glimpses into what the future might hold?
He definitely doesn't leave us hanging. Schneppat actually paints a rather optimistic picture, suggesting that despite the challenges, we're on the cusp of wider blockchain adoption.
So more than just a few niche applications, we're talking about blockchain becoming more mainstream.
Exactly. Schneppat predicts increasing standardization across industries, with more and more businesses realizing that blockchain isn't just a fad, but like a fundamental shift in how we handle data and build trust.
And as this happens, I imagine we'll see a lot more innovation in how blockchain is being used, right? What are some of the specific examples Schneppat highlights?
Well, one area he's particularly excited about is digital identity management.
Okay.
Imagine a world where your personal data is securely stored and controlled by you on a blockchain.
Okay.
No more worrying about data breaches or identity theft because you have complete ownership over your information.
That would be a game changer. What else does Schneppat see on the horizon?
He talks about the integration of blockchain with the Internet of Things,
or
IoT.
Okay.
Think of smart homes, smart cities, all these connected devices, communicating and sharing data securely and transparently through a blockchain network.
Okay, so streamlining processes, making things more efficient, but also increasing transparency in how all these systems operate.
Precisely. And then there's the whole world of decentralized finance. Or DeFi. Schneppat points out that blockchain is already disrupting traditional financial systems, making them more accessible and transparent. He sees this as a trend that will only continue to grow.
And we can't forget about NFTs, those unique digital assets that have exploded in popularity. Does Schneppat address those as well?
He does. He sees a lot of potential in NFTs, not just for things like digital art and collectibles, but also for proving ownership of physical assets and verifying authenticity.
Okay, so there are definitely some exciting possibilities here, but I keep thinking back to those challenges we discussed earlier. The cost, the energy consumption, the complexity. How are those being addressed as blockchain becomes more mainstream?
Schneppat acknowledges that these are hurdles that need to be overcome.
Yeah.
He points to ongoing efforts to develop more energy-efficient blockchain protocols and to find ways to make implementation more affordable.
Okay. And on the regulatory front, there's a growing push for clearer frameworks which should encourage wider adoption. So a lot of moving pieces, a lot of things happening simultaneously, but ultimately it all boils down to whether or not consumers buy into it, right? Will they be willing to pay for this blockchain secured information? What does Schneppat say about that?
He argues that the key to driving consumer adoption is demonstrating the tangible benefits of blockchain.
Okay.
It's not enough to just slap a blockchain label on a product and expect people to pay a premium. Companies need to show how blockchain actually improves their lives, makes their experiences better, aligns with their values.
So it's not about the tech itself, it's about the value it delivers.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting. Schneppat emphasizes the importance of communicating these benefits clearly and simply. Consumers need to understand what they're paying for and how it benefits them without getting bogged down in technical jargon.
Okay, so focusing on the why not, just the how, like that. But, as we've been talking about all the potential applications of blockchain, I keep thinking about the ethical implications. Does Schneppat address those at all?
He does touch on this particularly, the potential for blockchain to inadvertently create new forms of exclusion.
Okay.
He argues that if access to information and services becomes increasingly dependent on blockchain technology, then those who lack access or digital literacy could be left behind.
That's a crucial point. Blockchain shouldn't become another barrier to participation.
Right.
It should be used to empower people, not to exclude them.
Absolutely. And Schnepa also highlights the balance between transparency and privacy.
Okay.
While blockchain can enhance transparency by making information verifiable,
Right.
it also raises concerns about protecting sensitive data and ensuring individual privacy.
So finding that sweet spot between openness and confidentiality.
Exactly. It's a complex issue that requires careful consideration as blockchain technology becomes more integrated into our lives.
This has been a really fascinating exploration so far, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface of this complex and rapidly evolving topic.
There's definitely a lot more to unpack, and that's what makes this so compelling.
Yeah.
Blockchain is a constantly unfolding story with the potential to reshape our world in profound ways.
We've covered a lot of ground, but I think it's important to bring it back to the individual listener. What does this all mean for them? How can they navigate this world of blockchain and make informed decisions as consumers? We'll be right back to delve into that and to wrap up our deep dive. Okay, so before we went to, I guess not a break,
Right.
we were talking about the need to bring this conversation about blockchain back to the individual listener.
Right.
What does it all mean for them? How can they kind of navigate this world and make informed decisions as consumers?
Well, Schnepa actually dedicates a good portion of his essay to this very question. He argues that as consumers, we have a responsibility to be informed, to ask critical questions, and to demand that blockchain technology is used ethically and responsibly.
So it's not just about understanding the technology itself.
Right.
It's about being aware of the broader implications.
Exactly. And this goes back to what we were discussing about accessibility.
Okay.
Schnepa stresses that, we need to ensure that the benefits of blockchain are distributed fairly and don't exacerbate existing inequalities.
Like we can't get so caught up in the potential of blockchain that we forget about the people who might be left behind.
Right. And along those lines, Schnepa also reminds us that technology is never neutral.
Okay.
It's always shaped by the values and intentions of those who create and use it.
Mm-hmm.
So as consumers, we have a role to play in shaping the future of blockchain by supporting companies that are using it responsibly and advocating for policies that promote ethical development and use.
It's about being proactive, not just passive consumers.
It's
It's about using our purchasing power and our voices to shape a future where blockchain benefits everyone.
Precisely. And that starts with education.
Okay.
We need to understand how blockchain works, what its implications are, and what questions to ask.
Okay.
For example, if a company is using blockchain to verify the sustainability of their products,
Right.
what kind of information are they providing? Is it comprehensive? Is it independently verifiable?
Right. Are we just taking their word for it?
Right, exactly. These are the kinds of questions we should be asking.
So it's about looking beyond the marketing hype and really digging into the details.
Exactly. And Schnepa encourages us to think critically about the sources of information we're relying on.
Okay.
Who's verifying the information on the blockchain? Is it a trusted third party or is it the company itself?
Right.
These are important considerations.
It sounds like there's a real need for consumer literacy when it comes to blockchain.
Absolutely. And that's where I think Schnepa's essay is so valuable. It provides a framework for thinking critically about blockchain and its implications.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't just tell us what to think.
Yeah.
He encourages us to ask the right questions.
So as we wrap up our deep dive, I think it's important to come back to that question mark in Schnepa's title.
Right.
Consumer willingness to pay for information stored on blockchain. Have we found an answer?
I think we've come to a nuanced understanding.
Okay.
There's definitely potential there, but it ultimately hinges on consumer trust and a clear demonstration of value.
It's not just about the technology itself, it's about how it's used and the benefits it provides.
Exactly. And as Schnepa so eloquently puts it, blockchain is a powerful tool that has the potential to reshape our world in profound ways, both for better and for worse.
Right.
It's up to all of us as consumers to ensure that it's used to create a more just equitable and sustainable future.
So we leave you with this final thought as blockchain continues to evolve and become more integrated into our lives. Stay informed, stay curious, and keep asking those critical questions. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of blockchain and consumer behavior.